Hey guys, this is Michael Oskam from ProWestRecording.com. Quick video for you today on a touchy subject for me at the moment. I had a YouTube watcher post a comment, and he was thankful for a video that I had done, but it was a bit critical in the sense that he was in this particular video recently. I was putting limiters on certain drum stems and other subgroups. Um, and the comment said something to the effect of, "You're just gonna limit everything until you're." I get it. Like your stereo bus is gonna blow up, something like that. It's beside the point, really. But the reason I bring it up is because it led me to uh, uncover what is a common misconception amongst amateurs out there um, when it comes to limiting and, more importantly, metering within your DAW and the difference between, say, peak and RMS. Okay, so I'm going to explain that really quick. And then maybe you'll have a better understanding of what you're talking about before you go posting things on videos for the world to see. So let's dive into this here. Let me first play this song for you. This is a new track off of my upcoming project here, and I'll just give you the taste of the chorus here.
Is my love ever gonna be enough? Everything that you ever dreamed of, everything you need.
Okay, so it's kind of fun, poppy, obviously, and it is what it is. You'll notice there's not a ton of processing going on in this session. The reason being, I tracked this in another DAW and then bounced stems out and brought it into a Pro Tools session to finish up the mix, and then we'll be taking it to mastering next. But not unlike a lot of you guys, if I'm prepping a song to go to mastering, I do apply certain things to the stereo bus that a mastering engineer would, just to bring it up to volume and things like that. And then obviously I take those processors off before sending it away to the mastering engineer so that he has the headroom to work with. Now, I'm not going to get into mastering full-blown because actually there is a free video up on my YouTube here, guys, on mastering. I think it's really informative, so if that's something you're interested in, please take a look at that video. This is a metering plugin. There's many made by different manufacturers. This one's made by Waves. It's going to be able to tell us the difference between peak levels and RMS levels. There's other meters that show different levels and different readouts, but for the sake of this short video, we're just going to talk about peak and RMS. Okay? Now, in Pro Tools 11, this is not an HD rig. This is a native rig, so it doesn't have all of the metering options that an HD rig will have, but it does have some. If you right-click on any fader, you'll see your options here, and these two will show us peak and RMS. The venue is a console that that Avid makes, and it runs in line with Pro Tools. They're really bitching, but anyway, so this is their style of meter that comes on that desk. So and then there's Pro Tools Classic, which is Pro Tools 10 and below, and then Sample Peak, which is kind of the prettiest looking one, I think.
Is my love.
Anyway, meters are not there just to dance around and look pretty. Sure, they're a visual representation of kind of where your signal is, so in addition to the fader, you can get an idea of how your mix is set up. But when it comes down to, you know, getting toward the end of your mix, or if you're working on a subgroup, let's say like this right here.
Is my love.
Okay. Right? So if I was dealing primarily with just this group, and this is the instance that I had in the video that was commented on, I was applying a limiter in the last insert. And the reason is because I was pushing some of the compressors on the bus itself. Why? Well, because I like the coloration that those particular units give to the sound, and I like to push it. So in that instance, the snare drum, for example, can get really hot. I like to hit certain plugins hard because I like the way it sounds when it's hit hard. So what do I have to deal with in return? Well, sometimes the snare drum may cause it to clip, okay? And we don't want clipping because clipping sounds bad. So in that instance, I would throw on a limiter. In this case, I'll use L2 because it's the most simplistic looking limiter. Let's see, L2. Let me explain something about a limiter here, okay? Let's put this on. As you can see, no limiting is happening, okay? The threshold has not been crossed. Limiters are the same as compressors. They work the exact same way. The only difference, of course, is the ratio. So until I drop this threshold level to where the level will be surpassing it, no limiting will actually be taking place. Now, if I were fearful of this snare drum going past 0 dB, what would I have to do? I would have to put its out ceiling to -0.1. I can also bring its threshold down the same amount. If I click this button here and I drag down, you see they come down the same. There is no volume change when you do it this way. Okay, I'll prove it. Let's press play here. Now we're going to start attenuating. The volume is not changing. Do you understand why? Think about it for a second. Think about what you're looking at. And the levels. Why is the volume not changing? Well, it's pretty simple. If you think about how a compressor or a limiter works. The threshold is being crossed in this instance, right? And for every bit that it's crossed, I won't go into the math of it, it's being attenuated this much. Okay? So if this ceiling were then pressed up, for everything that wasn't passing the threshold, that would be brought up to the output ceiling. So anything below the threshold is being raised in volume, and anything over the threshold is being compressed in volume. So if I put its out ceiling higher, and obviously its threshold lower, now we're going to get a big volume boost. And the further down I bring the threshold, the more volume. Because we're essentially, as Dave Pensado says best, we're packing more information below 0 dB. That's essentially what you're trying to do. In the instance of the video that I was posting the other day, I was simply maybe doing this. Something like that. Okay? And let's assume then that this snare drum is getting out of control so we can have it clipping out. Okay? Now I'm pushing it ridiculously hard. See how this is clipping? Well, not the whole thing. It's just the snare hit. And I just want to get the snare hit to not pass 0 so I don't have any distortion in my signal. Turn on the limiter. Okay? Do you hear any volume change? Let me bypass. Bypass. And now clipping and possibly causing audible distortion. And let's unbypass. No volume change. No longer clipping. So, to answer the question, no, I'm not limiting everything to make it as loud as possible and then dumping it into a stereo bus, which will then be hard limited to make it as loud as possible. There's a difference between hard limiting and a gentle limit. So let's look at these meters for a second. Okay, let's do this on. So let's do this on the stereo bus. Let's look at this now. Okay, so here's peak, and I'm running an L2 before this. Let's bypass the L2. We're clipping. Okay, so let's see what we're doing on the L2. Same thing. Okay, these are brought down in tandem just to prevent a clip. Now we can clear these out. No audible volume change, and it's only dropping it maybe a dB to get just to get that snare hit under. Okay. So now that we're not clipping, here's some fun math on a Wikipedia page that won't learn anything from it. So this is the science behind it. I've skimmed it. Sometimes Wikipedia gets it right. What do you know? Go ahead and take a look if you're really interested in the math. What it really means is, never mind the peak levels for a second. What does it all mean when it's kind of averaged out? How much are we hearing? What level are we hearing on average? Mean. Okay, the mean. You wouldn't be a very good mastering engineer, for example, if you had one really, really loud instrument in the mix and you were ensuring that that loud instrument wasn't peaking, wasn't clipping out, but then the rest of the mix was like super quiet. Okay, you understand what I mean? So the job of the mastering engineer in that case would be to really compress down that loud instrument and bring up the rest of the mix so that it sits somewhere on average in a range of volume. What is that range? It's supposed to be somewhere between -10, -20. Okay, so that's what these numbers will denotate down here. Here's peak. Let's switch it to RMS. Let's take a listen and a look. So here is our peak still, the orange. And here in blue is the average volume that you're consistently hearing. Let me switch this back to peak. You'll see the difference. So this is why it's confusing to a lot of people. Wow. Well, if you're looking at peak, you think, well, I've brought this mix up to be pretty loud. This is coming up to like -6. That's pretty good. Let's switch it back to RMS for a second. What this shows me is that there is a lot of room to make this track louder. Okay? Let's do it. How do you make it louder? Quite simply, there's a lot of ways, but let's try it with a limiter. Watch me now as I drop this threshold to bring the peaks down and the overall volume of the track up. Dropping the threshold. Oops, pushed it too hard. Okay, so now that's dancing between -10, -20, somewhere in there. That to me is very loud, you guys. That is very loud. But that's what a lot of these guys are doing to get these really, really loud, the loudness wars. Read all about it, right? That's what they're doing. They're packing, as Dave says, they're packing more information below 0 dB. I hope this clears up some misconceptions about metering. And I hope that you understand how all of this kind of works together, because the sooner you do, the better off your mixes will be. All right, guys, check out the website, prowestrecording.com. Always down to help, always down to answer questions. Drop me an email, or if you're interested in some private lessons, those have been catching on, and they're really successful. People are really learning a lot. I'm having a great time. They're having a great time. Drop me an email, ask me more about it. Until then, I'll see you guys soon.